Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats and welcome back to the stage, Laurie Stewart.
Thank you again. You know, I'm going to go home and think that every time I go up and down a set of stairs, somebody's going to clap. I hope you're enjoying lunch. And I know that this goes without even asking the question, that we're enjoying our time at the Conference of Champions. It's just awesome. And we're in for the big finale, so I'm excited to introduce our next speaker. Before I do, a little housekeeping item. The online store will be available for about a week, and you will be able to use your Live Yes 25% discount in that week. So don't forget your discount, and don't forget to shop. So we are now so excited to close out our time together at the Conference of Champions with our president, Ann Palmer. But before we let Ann have the stage, we've got a very special guest who'd like to share his story with us. Please welcome to the stage the star of stage and screen, including the Twin Peaks: The Return, NBC's The Blacklist, Hulu's The Path, and this year in The Iceman Cometh on Broadway with Denzel Washington. Our friend, Clark Middleton.
How you doing? Thank you. Thank you. It's so great to see you. Continue enjoying your lunch while we talk for a few minutes. And thank you, Laurie. I want to start out by asking everyone a question. How are you doing today? Yeah? For those that have arthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, how are you feeling today? Thumbs up? Well, anyway, wherever you're at is where you're at. So, and that's all good because you're still you and I'm still me. And I'll get to what that means in just a second. But let's see where I'm at today. So because you work with where you're at. Well, I've got a little bit of aches and pains here in my lower right back. My right ankle's a little achy. A little bit of my neck, a little bit. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say about 3 or 4. But that's still good, because what's important is you learn to work with where you're at. And actually, that can be kind of fun. I heard a previous speaker today say, we have to learn to be comfortable in being uncomfortable. And that can be really a positive and very productive. So let me talk about this still me. Now, where I got the idea of still me was from my father. My father was the greatest inspiration for me, and he got me through childhood rheumatoid arthritis, JRA. And the way he inspired me to think was profound. And a lot of the success I've had is a lot of because of my father, the great life I had. But a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I should say, he said to me, I taught you boys how to live, meaning me and my brother. I taught you boys how to live, now I got to teach you how to die. So, if I can get this to work, there he is. And one of the things he did, the first thing he did, and he was a great carpenter, he said he built his own box. And he put 2 drawers in it, one for him and one for his wife, his wonderful wife, my stepmother. And he explained, he pulled them out, he's very proud of it, and he said, these are ashtrays. So, my ashtrays. So anyway, a little while later, I was doing an episode of Blacklist, and I get a call, and Blacklist, it's on NBC, and I get a call, and they say my dad had fallen. And his left side was pretty much paralyzed. He had had prostate cancer for a long time, and he had a lot of effects from having had prostate cancer. So I went to see him in the hospital, and let's see. Whoops, I'm going the wrong direction. Went to see him in the hospital, and he I walked in, the first thing he said to me, he looked at me and he said, "I'm still me. You know, I am still me." And what I realized at that moment is I suddenly became very conscious of what he had been sort of teaching me my entire life and helped me overcome so many obstacles with having had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And many years of, even after I'd become a professional actor, having joint replacements. And what he was really saying to me is, despite his condition, he was still incredibly vital. So, and he was actually teaching me in the moment. And he said, you know, these nurses, they treat me like a little baby. They have to clean me, they have to help me change clothes, roll me over. You can hardly even get out of bed. And he said it with a sense of humor and a sense of irony. But the point he was making is that he was still me, he was still him. He was still teaching, still effective, taking, sounds a bit cliche, turning lemons into lemonade. He was still making the most of life. So I went back to New York, and I said, you know, I've got to do another episode of Blacklist, and I'll come back and I'll see you as soon as I'm done with the episode. So I went back to New York City, and I'm sitting in the makeup chair with these two lovely ladies, and that's the makeup room at NBC's sound stage of Law and Order. And this lovely woman on the right was sitting there doing my makeup, and my phone rings. And I see it's my brother, so I pick it up, and he says, "You got a minute to talk?" And I said, "Well, I'm getting ready to do this episode of Blacklist." And he said, "Well, call me when you get a chance." He said, "I got something I want to tell you." And I said, "Well, you can tell me now." And he said, "Dad's gone." And I said to my brother, I said, "You know, I'm going to let the first AD know and go home and not work today." And he said, "No, no, no. You have to go to work. Dad loved you on that show. You have to go out there and celebrate Dad's legacy by doing what you do and what you love to do." So I went out there and I did the job, and then I got home, and there was a phone call from my brother saying, "Did you work?" And I said, "I worked." And he said, "Dad would have been proud of you." There were flowers there from NBC and the people at Blacklist. And I remembered, and I shared this story with my brother, I'd talked to my dad the night before, right before he'd gone to sleep. And the thing he had said to me, he said, "You and your brother have made me more proud than you will ever know. I am so proud of what you've been able to do with your rheumatoid arthritis and what you've been able to make of your life." So he loved Glenn Jellybean Carter, which is the guy that I play on Blacklist. And so he said, "I love you, and good night." Okay, my whole story with rheumatoid arthritis started when I was 4 years old. My doctors had said, "This is the most profound, challenging young man with rheumatoid arthritis that I had ever seen." They had ever seen. They said it was the worst case they'd ever seen. So they told my parents, they said probably the only way he'll really have a good life is that if you leave this cold, damp climate of Louisville, Kentucky. So my dad, he packed us up in this 55 black Ford station wagon, red on red interior, and no air conditioning. This is August. So we drove across the desert. We drove from Kentucky, then through Missouri and across the desert, and I was laying in the back, ambulance style, looking at Route 66 passing me by. My father, there were no freeways in those days, so but you'd have to go through every little town, and there were a ton of just endless stoplights. And he would ease the brakes as we would come into each stop, as we would approach each stoplight, to keep from jerking the car in any kind of way, so it wouldn't rattle my joints, knees, hands, ankles that were swollen about the size of cantaloupes. So I got to Tucson, Arizona, and I'm in the desert. So that's the place I grew up. That's the city I love. That warm, dry climate in that desert began to make me feel better. My father got me the best doctors they could get, so I had a great first grade, a great second grade, and then the third grade, I had a relapse. It fused my neck permanently, and then then it went into remission. Fifth and sixth grade, I was a rambunctious kid, in and out of trouble, just making up for lost time. And then in the seventh grade, I had another bad relapse. And that took my shoulders, fused my shoulders, my wrists. The right one had been fused when I was 5, and then the left one when I was 12. And then I went into remission again. And then I had a great 8th grade, a great 9th grade, and then I had the worst relapse when I was 15. My right hip slipped 6 inches out of its socket, up my right side, and it took them a year to figure out what to do with that. So I missed a year of school. My father continued to tell me there was something to be improvised, something to be made out of this situation. So I got through it, and I was on crutches for the rest of high school, then a cane. My last day of high school, I took my cane, and when they handed me the diploma, I threw the cane. And I was an actor then, so I guess I was looking for a lot of attention, right? But the thing that's really interesting is that I began to feel confused, emotionally confused about what I had been through. I hadn't had a chance to really process all of that. And the thing that I kept thinking about that was missing was a community. I never really had a community to connect to, not only to be able to articulate the physical challenges and the pain I was having, like when kids would walk by and accidentally bump my foot with no intention of hurting me. It was really painful, but so not only did I not have anyone to really talk about that, but more importantly, I didn't have anyone to really talk about my identity and what I was feeling. So, and I started to notice that at one point, so many people were patronizing me. I don't think they meant to do that, but I used to say that they're making me feel like a sweet little crippled guy that's making them feel good about themselves because they're helping the sweet little crippled guy. You know, they were kind of telethonizing me, I would say. And something felt so disturbing about that to me. And I realized what I really wanted was to feel vital, important. And I wanted to earn being special. I didn't want to be special because I had rheumatoid arthritis. I didn't want to be an inspiration because I was a kid growing up with rheumatoid arthritis. It just kept making me angry. The Arthritis Foundation, actually, no fault of theirs, asked me to go on the radio when I was 17 and talk on the radio with a man that was going to interview me about what an inspiration I was. And I told my mother, I said, no way I'm doing that. I don't want to do that. She couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand it. So I was really confused when I was 18. So I dropped out of college. Bang, I went to California. And I got to California. So I'm in California. And I get a job pretty quick, working at the welfare office and the Bureau of Prisons. And then I decided to go back to college. And the only class I signed up late they had available was an acting class. I said, acting? That's crazy. I'd never thought about being an actor. I didn't want to be an actor. So I went in there and to that class, and on the first day, I felt like I had been hit by a thunderbolt. I felt like this is a place where I can tell my story by telling other people's stories. And so I decided, okay, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I want to be an actor. And so I started doing community theater plays in Southern California. And then I decided to go to Los Angeles and really go for it, try to be a professional actor. So the first thing I did is I got headshots. That's my first acting headshots. And then they said, well, you need a resume if you're going to get an agent. So my friend and I were driving down to Los Angeles, and I have a piece of paper and a pen, and he had really bad shocks on his car. So I was writing my community theater credits on this piece of paper, and so each credit would sort of go up and bounce around. And so then I went into Los Angeles. I Xeroxed a bunch of copies, went around knocking on doors. And one agency, the guy came out and he says, this looks really interesting. He said, let me call the rest of the agents to come out here and look at this resume. So they all came out and said, well, that's one of the most interesting resumes I've ever seen in my life. And I handed them this picture. Obviously, they never called. So here I am. I'm a professional actor. And I've decided, hey, now I know what I'm going to do. I knew where I could sort of put my energy, where I could put my confusion. And then I thought, I got to get a girlfriend. And I met Sweet Kathy. So I met Sweet Kathy. Sorry, I don't have a picture of her. And after about 4 or 5 months, you know, I'm still feeling this weird thing about my body. And so one night, I'm at her home, wearing disco clothes, 6-inch heel shoes, big bell-bottom pants, polyester multicolored shirts. Those shirts always stink. If you got BO in them, no matter how many times you took them to the cleaners never left. So I'm sitting on the edge of her bed one night in the dark, and the bathroom door opens, and she sort of peeked out of that bathroom door. The light was coming out of the door, and she was naked. And I said, oh, Sweet Kathy, you're naked. So I'm sitting on the edge of this huge waterbed, and she starts to approach me, and I'm going, oh, I get it. So I'm sitting on the edge of the waterbed, so I had to kind of catch a wave to get up and get my clothes off. So I get my clothes off, slip under the covers, roll over on top of Kathy, going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually having this experience. I thought as a man with rheumatoid arthritis, I would never have this experience. And then Sweet Kathy was going, slow down there, cowboy. 30 seconds later, the experience was over. For me, not for Sweet Kathy. The next morning I woke up, and there she was sitting in front of me in the light, the morning light. Her legs were cross-legged, and I had the covers right up here, up to my neck. And she said, Clark, let me see your body. Let me look at your body. And I said, no, you can't see my body in the light. And she stared at me a minute, and then she put her hands on her breasts, and she went, look at my breasts, Clark. Huh. My left is slightly different than my right. Isn't that interesting? Curious? Wonderful? We made love one more time. I think I was a little better. So that relationship went on for a little while, and it ended. And then there were many others until I met my gorgeous wife, Alyssa. And I realized that Los Angeles wasn't for me, so I went to New York City because I wanted to be a down and dirty New York City off-Broadway actor like Al Pacino and Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro and those guys. It's interesting because years later, I wound up working with Al Pacino, and I had one of the few little flare-ups I had ever had. It lasted about a week. And one day, Al comes in, and to rehearsal, we were working on the play Salome, and he's carrying a sandwich in aluminum foil. And he says, I had my driver stop and pick this up for you because it's good for your thing. And I said, well, what? Your arthritis thing, it's good for you. And I said, well, Al, what is it? And it was 2 pieces of white toast with a fried egg that he had gotten from a New York City diner. So anyway, he really meant really well, and I'll always love him for that. So anyway, I did play after play, year after year, and then there was movies, and there was Quentin Tarantino that saw me in a play and put me into bigger parts in the movies. And then I started doing television, and a few years later, I was on Broadway, as I said, this year, doing The Iceman Cometh with Denzel Washington. That's me and Denzel. And I started to think, whoops, wrong direction, go back. There's a flyer, I don't know if you can quite see that, but that's me down there on the left in the Iceman Cometh poster. I began to feel this remarkable sense of being grateful. I felt like I had really arrived somewhere, and I felt like somehow everything had started to come together in my life that had great meaning in relationship to my having had rheumatoid arthritis. And I started to think about, what is it that changed how I feel? And then I started realizing part of it was what I had learned as an actor. And these are things I want to quickly share with you. One of them is, I thought, acting is really about dealing with obstacles. It's about dealing with challenges. I have people that often ask me, how do you get comfortable on stage? How do you get comfortable in front of a camera? Auditions. I said, why would you ever think that I want to be comfortable? Because writers don't write about people that are comfortable. You've got to learn to love the problem. You've got to learn to love fear. You have to learn to love those challenges, and that challenges you to be imaginative and creative in order to deal with those obstacles and get around them, and you feel profoundly gratified after you've done it. The other thing that's really interesting, I realize as an actor that part of it is, of course, you learn all the lines, and then you do all your other work, but I also think that I wanted to know how characters think, how they think. So I would script an entire dialogue underneath the lines, remember all those lines that are underneath what I'm saying, and actually think those thoughts when I'm acting, and then the words would sort of take care of themselves when I was actually acting, dealing with an obstacle. But I also noticed they began to make me feel what the character was feeling. I was actually experiencing it without trying. And then I started to do the same thing in my life with rheumatoid arthritis. So I started scripting what I wanted to think in relation to how I dealt with obstacles. And so there would always be that voice when that scary thing comes up where you go, oh, I can hardly move this morning. The thoughts start going. And then I've got this other dialogue in my head, which I call the adult, that speaks back to that child and says, we have to improvise here. We got to make something of this. Go to your room, shut the door. I got this. I've got this. So it really profoundly helped me. Now, when I was doing Iceman Cometh, I got this man sent me a letter, and he said, my children have made baseball cards, and they each choose one person that has inspired them for what they've done and are doing in the world more than anyone else. And then we ask these people to sign it, send it back, they frame it so they can see it every day when they get up from bed. So it motivates them to do bigger and greater things. And see, this is all a manifestation of the way I began to think and the way I began to frame things. So that's my beautiful wife, Alyssa. And I began to think about not only how lucky I've been and what this rheumatoid arthritis has done for me, but it's like I realized I have a great life. I'm actually living the dream. We just bought a house in Los Angeles. That's our pretty little home that we just bought. And before I go, I want to leave you with one last little story that has a lot of meaning to me. I'd done David Lynch's new Twin Peaks, and I don't know, a year and a half ago or so, we were at the premiere, and we were walking the red carpet. And, there's all the photographs and interviews you do. And so we left the red carpet, and we started to walk into the theater, this beautiful old Hollywood theater that had been the premiere for so many great movies, and old movies that I had always loved, going back to the silent era. And I realized I'd never seen anybody with a disability in all those wonderful movies. And I realized, here I am in a premiere with this wonderful and a big part in David Lynch's new Twin Peaks. So, as I was walking into the theater, there was this group of people behind this rope, and they were all yelling my name. And they were saying, "Clark, we love you. Clark, we love you, we love you." So my wife, Alyssa, said, "Clark, you got to go over there and sign their posters before you go in." And I said, "Okay, I'll go over and sign." So I signed and signed all their posters. And as I'm signing their posters, I started to think of my dad. And I remembered one time when I was a little boy, I had had this intestinal block as a result of having JRA. And the doctors thought I was going to die. They called him. He said he never remembered the drive to the hospital. He said I was numb. But I didn't see that. All I saw was a man smiling when he walked in. He looked at me and said, "Bud," short for Buddy, "don't you worry. I've got this. I've got this." And so he walked alongside the stretchers. They wheeled me into the operating room. They turned me just slightly to the right so I could see this little window on the operating room door. And I could see his face smiling with his thumbs up and whispering, "Don't worry, I've got this. I've got this." I woke up. There was his face, still smiling. Thumb up, "I've got this. I've got this." So as I was at that Twin Peaks opening, signing, and meeting all these beautiful people, I thought of my dad, and I thought of that. And I sort of looked up into the LA cobalt blue night sky. It was really beautiful. And I felt, for a second in my thoughts, I talked to him. And I said, "Dad, I've got this. I've got this. Now, I've got this." And I thanked him. And I remembered all the times he had carried me on his shoulders when I was a little boy, when I couldn't walk. Up on his shoulders, he had carried me. And then I thought of the last moment that my brother and I had said goodbye to him. There he is. And there he is. I was carrying him in his box that he was so proud of. And I was so grateful for the life he had given me. So, to wrap up, folks, I realized I had my dad. He was my community. Somehow what he had given me was something that motivated me unconsciously and then consciously to go out and live my dreams. I told him I want to be an actor, and he said, "Just keep your hands out of your pockets." I said, "What do you mean by that?" And he said, "Well, keep your hands out of your pockets." When I was a kid in high school, we had a Drammy teacher. He liked to call himself an old country boy, although he had a master's degree. And she came in for a week in our English class, and she said, "You'll never be an actor because you can't keep your hands out of your pockets." So here I was. I'd been an actor. I'd had this success, and I thanked him. But he had been my community. So folks, we need community. We need to come together. We need to motivate each other, to think about, to not be deterred by the obstacles and the challenges that we deal with every day while they continue to find a cure for rheumatoid arthritis. And so we all have to live in the positive. We all have to realize that in dealing with these obstacles, it's a chance for us to be creative, reach out, touch other people, and expand ourselves in doing it. And most of all, have a wonderful life. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Incredible. We will all walk away with a sense of community. Thank you, Clark. Clark will be available in the foyer after the session if you would like to say hello, get a quick photograph or an autograph. So he will be available, and we thank him again, and it's an opportunity to say thank you again. Now, we could not think of a better way to conclude our time together than to hear from our president, Ann Palmer. So please join me in welcoming Ann to the stage.
You know, I wanted to wait to the end to talk to you, knowing that it would be a risk to follow Clark. And I assure you that there'll be no standing ovation or any at the end of this. But, Clark said he didn't want to be an inspiration, but certainly he is. And I think it's remarkable what he's achieved and what he's overcome, and that he's reminding us again how difficult it is to live with a chronic disease and how it affects the whole family, right? And at the end, of course, he reminded us about the importance of a community. I wanted to talk to you at the end, and I'm probably not going to say anything you haven't heard before, but I just wanted to talk to you about our journey. I know that some of you think we're schizophrenic. I don't actually see it that way. I see this as, the next logical opportunity for us as an organization to do what we do well and to do it for more people. And I'm really excited about this opportunity, and I hope that you all are too. And I want to know if you're excited or not. So, are you excited about where we're going? Yeah, wow, good. I certainly am. And what I know, though, is that we'll only be successful if each of you in this room takes the passion that you have today and you take it back home. And, we've joked about fuel, and whether it's fuel or tires or wheels or whatever, it's about you. You're the energy. You're the thing that's going to make this happen or not happen. And we hope that while we've been here, we've given you some tools to get ready and to think about it. And when we listened to the people from Plenty, they certainly showed us how easy this is to do. But I'm very excited about the opportunity, and just really want today to just kind of review that with you and then tell you what we really want you to do when we go home. So I have our mission statement up here. And the reason I do is that, we often talk about no money, no mission. We saw today in the slides that, funding is kind of an issue with us. It always has been. It drives me crazy, frankly. And I think that, we sort of have this inferiority complex that, our deal isn't as important as everybody else's. And I think the Plenty people really reminded us what I know in my heart. I know in my heart that each of you thinks that this is an important disease. Each of you has a fabulous story to tell. You've told us how passionate you are. You just have to stand up and tell that story. I talk to people at the home office about fundraising, and they say to me, I've been here 20 years. I can't ask people for money again. I'm like, no, I'm not asking you to ask them for money. I'm asking you to tell people in your network how proud you are of the work that we've done. Tell your story about what a great job we're doing. People will support you. They want to hear that story. And then you have to ask for help. So, as we've become this relatively new organization, and we've struggled with fundraising, I think it's really time to stop talking about no money, no mission, and flip it around. And really talk about no mission, no money. And that's, again, one of the points that the Plenty folks are trying to make. You know, you can't raise money. You can't ask people for money if you don't know what you need it for. You can't say, oh my gosh, I need $10 million. What are you going to do with it? So I think that, you know, we have to really stand up. We're at a place now where we can really stand up and say, we're going to lead with mission. I don't want to come to communities anymore where people say, well, what do you do? Well, the Arthritis Foundation fundraises. We'll always fundraise, but let's lead with mission. We have the opportunity now with the network to hold ourselves accountable for a very, very different thing, for the outcomes of individual people and how they're doing better, how our work, your support, your networking, your taking them along is going to improve their lives. And if we do that for the millions of people who are knocking at our door, the money will follow. That creates a huge pool of people who will want to support us. So I think that it's time for us to really be proud of what we're doing, proud of the opportunity, because we know that we have the secret sauce, that we have great trusted information and wonderful volunteers who are willing to help people along. So let's really begin to go home and talk about the great work we're doing, to lead with mission and not lead with fundraising. You know, Rick showed that clip yesterday of last year and talking to you about our mandate, and I believe this so much, that as an organization, we know that we have people who are coming. We've heard it today, people sharing. Almost every person who's spoken has talked about a time where they felt alone, where they didn't know other people like themselves, and how much better they felt when they met other people. And our mandate is to come along beside people, to show them that they're not alone, to show them that the Arthritis Foundation is their home, their community, that we're here to embrace them as lifelong partners and try to help them along in their journey with a chronic disease. You know, this network promise about people with arthritis finding strength in each other and really living in less pain and feeling in control of their own care, to me, this is our job. You know, our job is to deliver on the network promise. Our job is to hold ourselves accountable. And you know, as we've been talking about this over the last year with the board of directors and with the senior team, they'll say to me, oh, Ann, we're going to have these dashboards and we're going to be talking about how many people move through the system. What if we don't move the marker? Maybe we shouldn't lay this out there, because what if we fail? Well, first of all, we're not going to fail. And secondly, that's what drives us. Then we have to go back. If we're not moving the marker, we have to go back and we have to say, what is it that we're going to do differently so that we do move the marker? It puts us all on the same page in terms of talking to people about moving that marker. And that's what I just love about this, is that, you know, this gives us something together to feel accountable for. But the great thing is that as we do this, as we meet individuals' needs, as we come along beside them, as we make a difference, we'll have the joy of making a huge difference to individuals, but we'll also be creating this powerful community. And we heard some about that on the first day, about the power of data, and using data, using patient insights, using a patient point of view to change the system. And we've been able to do that in many instances already. You know, we have the example of the PFDD meeting with osteoarthritis, where truthfully, the people from FDA, both there and at the JA patient-focused drug development meeting, were astounded and learned things and said, you know, as a result of this, because we were able to listen and understand, we're going to do something, we're going to change our guidelines. So the fabulous thing about this network is this huge opportunity for us to help people, to build this pool of people who want to support us, and to collectively lift ourselves up and have people, and that's part of the network promise too. The network promise is that you come, you join, you participate, you give back, and you give back not just to yourself, not just to, but to the whole community, that you feel empowered, you feel in control, that in fact, we as the arthritis community are going to make a difference. So we have a strong foundation already. This isn't, a big change. We've built the 4 pillars. We've built, as we've talked about, great resources, many of which are hard for people to find. But we have to do a better job of getting people available to find these resources, especially now that we know people are coming to us in such big numbers. So what we're going to do right now is draw a house. Because, when I think of the Arthritis Foundation, I'm always so honored when people talk about that they think of the Arthritis Foundation as home. They feel like it's a family reunion when they come to this meeting, and I do too. I mean, it's so empowering for me. But what I'd like for you to do is there's some markers and some crayons or paper there. So each of you draw a house. Just take a minute to be a little creative, well-being thing, and draw me a house. We almost have our houses drawn? Yep. So I'm going to show you my house. Whoops, backwards again. I just can't. Now, that's transparency, right? Showing you my awkward little house drawing. So how many people's houses look like my house? Most of you have a house that looks, do you all have a roof on your house? Pretty similar. Does everybody have a door? Yes. Does everybody have a window? Yes. Yeah. So there are a lot of similarities, but they're very different. And that's okay. That's okay. And that's really the beauty of what we're doing here, is that your house doesn't have to be exactly like my house. In fact, it shouldn't be, because you're going to be building a house, recruiting volunteers to meet the needs of the people who come to your house in your community. And that'll be different than the house in my community. But we'll all be building from the same foundation, the same 4 pillars, the same basics. So there'll be things that are alike, and then the opportunity for things to be different. And I think that this is something that I really want you to understand and appreciate. While some may feel the pressure of having to recruit volunteers, this is really freedom to operate. This is really putting you back in charge, really becoming a volunteer organization again. If we're going to meet the needs of individuals, if we're going to stop delivering programs and look and be present and listen to people's individual needs, we're going to have to be flexible, right? People are going to come to your house. Some are going to need different things than other people. And you're going to be able to take care of that, to build your house, design your house the way you want to. And that's a really big change for us. But I think one that so much makes sense, right? Back to that meeting people's needs, where they are, and helping them along, changing needs, evolving needs, right? And yes, we'll still offer programs, but that won't be our job. Our job won't be to get people to come to Program A or Program B. Our job will be to build a home, to recruit volunteers who can embrace and meet the thousands of people who are going to be knocking at our door that we want to help live with arthritis the way Clark and his family have. So that's your job. Now, you're going to need to go back and think of yourselves as the architect, maybe the architect and the builder, we're doing this on the cheap, in your market. We need you to plan the house, to really begin to think. And I hope that while you've been here, you've gotten the things that you need. You've begun to see how many people are in the system. You have some ideas of the kinds of jobs we're recruiting for. You have an idea of the kinds of basic program materials that we have that can be, you understand that there are lots of arthritis experts who can help. But you need to go back now and you need to make a plan. You need to take on the job as our committed core of being the architects of the Live Yes Network in your community. So what I want to ask you to do is to engage your local volunteers, to go home and take the enthusiasm that you have here. And I want you to look at this as a leadership conference, and we're giving you and asking you, I'm begging you, to go home and continue to want to lead. So what I'm specifically asking you to do is make sure that you can articulate the vision of the Live Yes Arthritis Network. The folks from Plenty told us that, that if you can't say it in your own words, then it isn't real, right? And you don't have to say it the way it's written up on the screen. You have to describe it as it's yours, as it means to you. But we have to do that. And we've been working with that with the executive directors for a while. But the most important thing is for you in your own mind to write your sort of elevator pitch. What does the Live Yes Arthritis Network mean to you? How do you describe it? Because you can't ask people to help you with it if you can't describe it. Then the second thing that I'm urging you to do is to get your folks together when you get back home immediately and start to share with them what you've learned here, what you see as the opportunity, and what the next steps are in terms of getting ready. Recruiting volunteers, understanding what you think your special needs are going to be. And then the third thing that I want you to do is really put it into action and believe that you can do this. Because I know that you can, and I know that you want to. And so that's my special ask is, let's go home, let's meet with people, let's begin to take action, and know that you have your volunteer and staff, your partners here to help you. But don't let any grass grow under our feet. Let's go forward, let's make this happen, let's bring this to life. And as we wrap this up, I really just want to talk to you about what I hope for a vision for next year. And this isn't going to happen overnight. We're not going to build this huge, powerful community. But let's imagine what we'd like to come back and think about next year. Wouldn't it be great if we had 100 more people in the room that were our network facilitators, our network leaders, people who are already executing on this? Wouldn't it be great if we could begin to see those needles move in your community about how much better we're doing? We can make that happen. We can make a difference to millions of people who are coming to us. And in doing that, by leading with mission, by doing the best thing for people with arthritis, we also will see an increase in people who support us. Grateful people who want to stand up and support the Arthritis Foundation. So let's lead with mission. Let's get after this. And as we do this, I'm thinking that I would like to see if we could do a little bit of a toast to you all. I think almost everybody has their glasses now, so I want to raise my glass to each of you, and I want to salute you for the wonderful work, your tremendous passion, all that you've done for us in the past. We just deeply want to express our heartfelt appreciation, and I want to also toast to the future and the great work that you're going to do in terms of leading the network. Here's to you all. Thanks for a great conference. Wonderful to be with you. And I look forward to coming back next year and celebrating our tremendous success when we lead with mission. Thank you. You're here.